Hello everyone and welcome to the video! This video won't be like my usual content. Today we're going to be doing a thorough deep dive analysis of the movie K-pop Demon Hunters. And when I say thorough, I mean it. I dug through interviews, read through the art books, scrounged Reddit threads, scrolled through fan theories, and watched this movie more than 20 times so that I can give you the most detailed, thorough understanding of this masterpiece as I can. Seriously, everything there is to know about this movie is in this video. I just want people to enjoy it as much as I did. Even if you're already a big fan, there will definitely be things in this video you haven't heard before. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Also, spoilers, duh. Also, a reminder that this video is intended as commentary, meaning any clips, lyrics, or visuals I use are only being used for the sake of commentary. This video is not and never will be monetized. I just want to make a fun video essay about my favorite movie. One of the best aspects of K-pop Demon Hunters is the character design. While it's a given that the main protagonists are fully realized characters, the movie allows for every character to have a ton of consideration and detail poured into their creation, from Huntrix to Bobby, Healer Han, and even Jinu's pets. There's so many interesting characters in this movie that I decided to structure this video by focusing mainly on the characters, with breaks for fun facts, major plot points, songs, scenes, and more. And we'll start our deep dive off with our lovable heroines, Huntrix. Now, in the words of this movie's master foreshadower, Healer Han,
to treat the part, we must understand the whole.
Which is why before discussing individual members of Huntrix, we're going to talk about the whole group. Unlike some real-life K-pop groups, the members of Huntrix are not rivals, but rather a tight-knit friend group and a found family. Throughout the movie, we're shown the unconditional love and support they offer one another. For example, when Rumi launches their single Golden unexpectedly, Mira and Zoe complain but still prepare for the launch. When Rumi runs away from the live debut of Golden without explanation, she returns home and isn't met with judgment or anger, but with comfort, support, and a warm bowl of soup. The girls often show each other goodwill, not assuming malicious intent, as they know each other well enough to know that Rumi wouldn't have ditched them for no good reason. Now, obviously the conflict in the movie causes the girls' friendship to fracture, but even at their lowest point, when Rumi's secret is revealed to Zoe and Mira, they act more confused and hurt than hostile. Despite being taught that all demons must die, they ask questions and seek understanding, only raising their weapons in defense when Rumi damages the Honmun with her voice, then they let her go without a fight. The support they offer each other is what sets Rumi apart from Jinu and is what helps Rumi overcome the deep insecurity that was planted in her head by her aunt Celine. Beyond this, the girls in K-pop Demon Hunters feel so human. According to writer/director Maggie Kang, she wanted the girls of Huntrix to be the type of women she always wanted to see on screen, not just cool and badass, but also flawed, imperfect, and silly. This is why within the first few minutes of screen time, the girls are shown downing a ton of food in preparation for their concert, and eating so much they end up burping and having stomach gurgles.
I said the only ones dying tonight are your...
I'm sorry, what?
Scenes like this humanize the girls and show them to be regular human women who experience gas and like to eat just the same as any of us. While it may not seem groundbreaking to let female characters be impolite, flawed, or otherwise imperfect, aka human beings, it is not common in the history of film. In fact, this is a more recent phenomenon sparked by the adorkable princesses seen in modern Disney, such as Rapunzel, Anna, or Moana. Some people take issue with these awkward, silly women and complain that the adorkable persona feels like it's being forced onto certain characters even if it doesn't make narrative sense. Considering this, K-pop Demon Hunters does a good job of not forcing an awkward, rude persona onto the female cast, and instead having a balance between silly and serious character moments, allowing them to be a more accurate representation of the average woman. They are not being shown obsessing over couch time or eating a ton of food just to make them seem quirky or not like other girls, but rather to make them seem more like regular human beings. A criticism I can imagining some people have is that it's not realistic for these beautiful, athletic, thin idols to eat as much as they do, especially considering how toxic the real-life idol industry can be about body image. However, I'd argue that K-pop Demon Hunters is refreshing, as it sets a healthier example for young fans, showing them that these role models can in fact enjoy eating food, as it gives them the energy they need to perform. Let the women eat, damn it. Beyond eating for energy, we also see the girls value rest and relaxation, with Zoe and Mira excited to spend time relaxing on their couch or in the bathhouse. We also see the girls go from extravagant performance or demon hunting outfits to just simple pajamas and no makeup. It's another refreshing detail that again conflicts with the harsh reality of real-life idols who are forced to practice and perform, sometimes to the point of collapsing. Despite being wildly famous and at the peak of their career, the girls still allow themselves the time they need to rest and recuperate. And to clarify, I'm not saying that eating, burping, wearing pajamas are flaws or imperfections, but rather that these things are often left out from female character depictions in order to create a polished and perfect persona. But the director's choice to include these human moments is a refreshing choice, which makes the characters more enjoyable. I mean, seriously, watch this scene from the end of the movie and tell me this isn't a realistic depiction of female friendship. Sometimes you just gotta cry with the besties to give yourself the reset you need. Now that we talked about Huntrix as a group, let's move on to the individual members, starting with the overly blunt, short-fused, highly aggressive, and very lovable Mira Kotodowski.
I just got this!
Sick.
According to Golden, which gives us a quick introduction to each girl, Mira was a problem child who acted out when she was younger, causing her to not be accepted by her family. When Healer Han tries to analyze each of the girls, Mira's the only one he's unable to read, since Mira's the type of person who uses a tough outer persona to avoid being vulnerable. Throughout the movie, we see that Mira's quick to express anger and frustration and doesn't shy away from conflict. Despite this, Mira's rarely unfair to others. In fact, her anger seems to help her protect herself and her friends as she questions mistreatment and sees through lies. After the group breaks up, the audience is shown Mira's deepest insecurity as Gima whispers the following.
You thought you found a family? You don't deserve one. You never have.
She then snaps at Zoe.
There is no we, Zoe. I don't get to have a family.
Like the other two members of Huntrix, Mira sees their friendship as a found family that accepts her despite her faults, yet she still fears that she doesn't deserve the friendship and love that she has. Also, a fun fact about this line that Mira says in the song How It's Done. According to this interview with EJ, who wrote most of the movie's iconic tracks, she was mumbling nonsense when trying to come up with the sound of the song, and co-writer Mark Sonnenblick misheard what she said as Napalm Era, and said it was iconic and that they need to write it down. It made it to the final cut and ended up being one of the most popular lines from that song and a bit of a TikTok trend. With all that said, let's move on to our bubbly, eager-to-please turtle lover, Zoe. The official art book describes Zoe as the baby or little sister of the group. While Mira fears she doesn't deserve friends, Zoe is more so afraid that she doesn't belong as a member of Huntrix. In the song Golden, we find out that Zoe is Korean-American and grew up in Burbank, USA. This caused her to feel like she never fully belonged to either culture. Zoe's full of ideas and is very enthusiastic about her interests, and is a skilled lyricist, but she expresses that before being a member of Huntrix, she always felt like her interests were useless and weird. While Zoe is accepted by Rumi and Mira, it's clear that she has always struggled to feel like she belongs. She overcompensates by this by being eager to please. When she meets Healer Han, he says as much, which makes her instantly uncomfortable and seek approval from Mira and Rumi. There's also a running joke throughout the movie as Zoe draws different conclusions from the same information as others. She also often waits to speak until Mira has spoken, and during the important confrontation with Rumi, she waits until Mira has raised her weapons before she raises hers. Near the climax of the movie, Gima whispers to her,
You're too much and not enough. You'll never belong anywhere, but I can give you a place to belong.
Reflecting what we already know about Zoe's character. Before we wrap up this section on Zoe, I wanted to bring up the discussion I've seen online that some neurodivergent viewers think that Zoe's neurodivergent coded due to her enthusiastic interests, incorrect answers, and struggles to fit in and feel like she belongs. I think that there have been many iconic characters in media that writers created based on their experiences and people they have known that have unintentionally become representations of autistic, ADHD, or other neurodiverse traits. Take for example Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, BBC's Sherlock Holmes, or even Elsa from Frozen. Regardless of intention or whether or not you personally agree if Zoe does represent neurodivergent traits, I think there's nothing wrong with audience members seeing themselves represented by a character, and it likely adds to their enjoyment of that character and is worth mentioning. Before we move on to our protagonist, I want to mention the secret fourth member of Huntrix, the lovable agent Bobby. This happy-go-lucky dance mom of an agent adds comedic relief, and while he plays a small role in the movie, he made a big impact on me as a viewer. I mean, how could anyone not love this guy? Look at him go! Despite being an amazing agent and manager who is always ready to help the girls, Bobby makes lower than the industry standard with a 3% share of their profits. But considering Huntrix is the #1 idol group in this movie, this is more than enough for him to live comfortably. I'll admit that when I first watched this movie, I thought Bobby was a friend of the girls, but after watching it a few more times, I began to realize that the girls often ignore Bobby and show little interest in him. Examples include the time when Rumi released the Golden single without discussing it, and Bobby showed up immediately to hype the girls up without complaint, despite canceling his spa plans. This also points to him having little social life or commitments outside of work with Huntrix, as he's immediately available. Another example of the girls showing little interest in Bobby is when Rumi and the girls ditched the live debut of Golden, leaving Bobby behind to deal with the aftermath of unhappy fans and bad press, though at least this example is a little more understandable. But even without reason, the girls often ignore Bobby, like when the girls decide to write a diss track and run off, leaving Bobby without acknowledging him, or when Bobby brings the girls snacks as they rehearse Takedown, and in the middle of telling the girls he's proud of them, they straight up walk away mid-sentence, fully ignoring him. I actually want to draw more attention to this scene as well, since it shows Bobby getting a targeted ad to his phone from the Soja Boys.
Join the Pride. We need you.
Because Gimwa knows that Bobby wants to feel needed, he targets him at a time when the girls make him feel undervalued. All that being said, I don't think the girls ignore Bobby out of meanness. I think it more so has to do with the fact that Bobby doesn't set boundaries or complain, and seems to be outwardly happy with this arrangement despite his current treatment. This does make me sad for Bobby, however, as he's just trying his best to be the manager that the girls need. After the girls break up, Gimwa whispers to Bobby,
"You couldn't keep them together. You're all alone, but you don't have to be."
And since Bobby's whole life is taking care of Huntrix, their breakup leaves a gaping hole in his otherwise empty life. This dialogue also confirms that Bobby doesn't have a life, family, or fulfillment beyond his job, which is just so sad considering how the Huntrix girls often seem to ignore him and his efforts. Geez, that got a bit sad there. To cheer us up, I want to point out Bobby dancing like a dance mom in this clip. He's just so silly and he's definitely one of my favorite characters. Now onto our main protagonist, the purple-haired half-demon hunter and lead of Huntrix, Rumi. We learn in the movie that Rumi is the child of an unnamed demon and Mi Young, a hunter/member of the Sunlight Sisters. After Rumi's mother died, she was left in the care of Celine, her aunt, and one other member of the Sunlight Sisters. Because of Rumi's heritage, she has demon patterns that Celine taught her to hide and feel ashamed of. But the shame she feels causes her demon patterns to grow, and by the beginning of the movie, they're beginning to spread to her throat and affect her voice. Rumi is stuck between two worlds, that of a hunter and a demon, and she really struggles with the shame of being part demon, a shame instilled into her by her misguided aunt. In the song Golden, Rumi states that she didn't believe she could fulfill her role as the lead of Huntrix, but that her and the other members of Huntrix managed to overcome their insecurities. However, just watch this scene.
No more hiding, I'll be shining.
Rumi is literally doing the opposite of what she's singing about. After putting on a jacket to cover up her scars and shame, they then spread to her neck, causing her to lose her voice as she rehearses. We can see as the movie progresses that Rumi, who was taught,
Your faults and fears must never be seen.
is being taken over more and more by demon scars as her shame remains unaddressed. It's almost like telling your kid to conceal don't feel is a bad lesson or something. Rumi is shown to be honest and straightforward, even about her mistakes. And her keeping a secret like this from the group is outside of her usual character. Keeping secrets doesn't come naturally to her, and we can see in flashbacks that Rumi wanted to tell Zoe and Mira about her scars in the past, but was told to keep it to herself by her Aunt Celine. As the movie plays out, Rumi is so scared to reveal her secret that she leaves her friends in harm's way, desperately covering her arm as they get overwhelmed by demons in the bathhouse. We even see her gaslight Mira in this scene.
Can't shake this feeling that you're keeping something from me.
Mira, I'm not keeping anything from you. I promise.
Sorry, I sound nuts.
Mira is insightful, and clearly her intuition tells her Rumi is hiding something, yet Rumi promises her that she's not, while literally hiding something behind her back, and then allows Mira to believe that she's crazy and paranoid. It's understandable why Rumi's acting this way, and it's certainly not her fault, but it's also incredibly unfair to Mira and to Zoe, and explains why they were so hurt to find out Rumi had been lying to them for years. At the same time, her friend's clear hatred for demons seems to eat away at Rumi. Look at these clips of Rumi reacting to the song Takedown.
When your patterns start to show, I see a pain that lies below. The hatred want to grow out of my...
What's going on? Why are we stopping?
It's just these lyrics are throwing me off. I don't think they're right just yet.
A demon with no feelings don't deserve to live. It's so obvious. I'm a girl.
To Rumi, her friends are essentially saying, "We hate you," and reinforce her fear that they would never accept her. However, Rumi's understanding of demons starts to change after she meets her rival and love interest, Jinu. Her opinions on the true nature of demons change after this exchange with him.
Feel? You're a demon. Demons don't feel anything.
Is that what you think? That's all demons do. Feel. Feel our shame, our misery.
This is the first time Rumi hears a perspective on demons other than "they are evil, kill them," and begins to see them as more humanized and tragic.
Are you a prisoner too? Is Kima making you do this?
As she gets to know Jinu, they sing "Free." In this song, Rumi takes on a new perspective that instead of running from their shame, they should try and face it, and thus reveals the cure to the shame that demons feel: hope. The hope that Rumi and Jinu feel heals Rumi's voice and briefly frees Jinu from Gimwa until his doubt sets back in. Hope is also what gives Jinu his soul back at the end of the movie as he sacrifices his soul for Rumi. In this universe, hope and shame are two opposing forces that can either free demons or keep them trapped. We see the effects of shame at the Idol Awards in a scene that never fails to make me cry. Demons impersonating Rumi's best friends taunt and bully her while singing Takedown, a song that was already hard for Rumi to hear. They then rip off her jacket, exposing her deepest shame to a huge audience and to themselves. In that moment, Rumi believes that her friends are confirming her deepest fear, that they don't accept her. She runs off stage and is met by the real Zoe and Mira, but her friends back away confused and end up drawing their weapons in defense as Rumi's voice damages the Honmoon. This again confirms Rumi's worst fear. She then bumps into Jinu, who destroys any hope she had left. Rumi then does something completely heartbreaking and asks her Aunt Celine to end her life. Celine says she can't out of a duty to Rumi's mother, while urging Rumi to just lie to her friends again. Notice that Celine doesn't say she doesn't want to kill Rumi, but that she can't out of a promise to Rumi's mother. Yikes. Now I'm going to bring something up that may seem random at first, but I promise it's relevant to this discussion. There's a therapy technique called parts work. It helps people see themselves not as a monolithic whole, but rather different parts that come together to make their whole self. Much like what Healer Han said. Earlier in the movie, Rumi can't accept the part of her that is demon. What helps Rumi heal is realizing she doesn't have to be either hunter or demon, but that herself is made up of the part of her that's demon and the part of her that's hunter. Both parts of her can exist at the same time, and both deserve to be accepted. It's why she asks Celine,
Why couldn't you love me? I do. All of me!
Because Celine has taught Rumi that only parts of her are worthy of acceptance and love. When Rumi reunites with her friends and sings "This Is What It Sounds Like," I want to call attention to the opening verse, particularly the shattered glass analogy. Rumi can finally see all the different parts of herself and can see the beauty in all of them. She accepts that her scars are part of her and that her demon side can exist in harmony with the rest of her. This sentiment helps Zoe and Rumi also accept themselves as they realize that even their jagged edges and bright colors are worthy of being loved. Also, a fun fact, did you know that Rumi was voiced by two different people? Arden Cho is the voice actor for Rumi's speaking parts, and despite the fact that Arden Cho is a singer, Rumi's singing voice is actually EJ, one of the movie's songwriters. According to an interview with Daniel Wall, EJ was initially hired as a songwriter, but they felt like her voice suited Rumi's character sonically. EJ also said that she was meant to debut as an idol herself for SM Entertainment, but was dropped due to her age, sound, and her focus on her studies. She ended up being a successful songwriter though, and has written music for Red Velvet, aespa, Twice, and other legendary K-pop idol groups. Also, did you know the girls' weapons each represent both their visual character design and their personalities? According to the art book, the weapons in K-pop Demon Hunters are traditional tools of Korean shaman known as mudang. Each of the weapons is also an extension of their character traits. Rumi wields a sign gyam, otherwise known as a four-tiger sword, which is a specific sword only made in Korea for ceremonial purposes on the year, month, day, and time of the tiger. Mira uses a curved moon sword known as a gokdo, with a spear-like design that has a tall, imposing shape meant to complement Mira's character design and presence. Zoe wields spirit blades known as shinkal, whose rounder, bubbly shape is meant to reflect Zoe's character. Mira's long spear-like weapon keeps distance between her and enemies and is representative of her hard-to-approach personality. Zoe has a bunch of short throwing knives she can throw at enemies to overwhelm them, similar to how her many ideas can also seem overwhelming. These short throwing knives also allow her to kill enemies near and far on a battlefield, meaning she can help wherever she is needed like the people-pleaser she is. Rumi has a double-edged sword that is more versatile and complements her hero aesthetic. She also uses it for defense and as a means of blocking and protecting herself from blows, just as she is often defensive and protective of herself. If you're interested in checking out the art book, I'd highly recommend it because it touches on how the girls all wear Norige charms as well as some of their fashion choices. I'll leave a link in the bio to it and all my other sources so you can check them out yourself. Speaking of weapons, let's move on to talking about who the weapons are for, demons, and more specifically, the Saja Boys! While Huntrix seems to defy a lot of tropes in the Korean entertainment industry, the Saja Boys serve as their foil, representing everything wrong with the industry. None of the Saja Boys have names and are instead named after what they represent. Baby's overly cute with a soft boy aesthetic and represents the infantilization of idols by some fans. Mystery is canonically a Cyclops, which makes this line by Zoe iconic.
You're just my type! Oh well!
He represents the pressure idols face when trying to maintain privacy and how some fans can see this as a challenge and become obsessed with unraveling the mystery in an unhealthy parasocial way. Talking about parasocial, romance represents the parasocial, romantic, and obsessive relationship fans can have with idols, and the manipulation of this emotional attachment industry representatives use to maintain fan loyalty. Abby's a clear representation of sexualization, and he's literally named after a sexually desirable body part of his abs. Even going so far as to sign etchings of his abs for fans. Also, a fun fact about Abby, according to the art book, he had a dad bod, and got his washboard abs through a deal with Gimhwa. He literally sold his soul for some abs. Speaking of Gimhwa, in an interview of his voice actor, Lee Byung-hun, from interviewer Seth Meyers, Byung-hun talks about how he often can't show his children his roles since he's cast in more adult shows, such as his role as frontman in Squid Games. He said that when he watched this movie with his 10-year-old son and told him he was the Demon King, his son said, "I hate Huntrix," and was on his dad's side for most of the movie. But by the end of the movie, during the final fight, his son told him, "Dad, I can't root for you anymore." We love an independent thinker, how cute. Before discussing Jinu, I want to take a moment to appreciate and analyze one of my favorite songs in the movie, Your Idol. Fun fact, there are two different intros to this song. In the movie, the intro is the Hunter's mantra played backwards, and in the official release on Spotify, the intro is Latin, which translates to, "Day of wrath that turns you into ashes, you will be cursed into eternal flames." While the song is meant to be about the Saja Boys controlling their fans, I always interpreted the lyrics to also be about an abusive relationship where one partner holds power over the other. Look how the singer speaks to the subject.
Keeping you in check, keeping you obsessed. Play me on repeat, good I'm free in your head. Anytime it hurts, play another verse. I can be a sanctuary.
He's literally saying he will manipulate his partner by being the only one they can rely on when they're hurt. Then he convinces them that he's the only one they can rely on ever.
Only one who will love your sins. Don't you know I need a savior? Yeah, I'm all you need, I'm a big dog.
He then isolates the partner by telling them,
Don't let it show, keep it all inside. The pain and the shame, keep it out of sight. Your obsession feels like an agent.
If his partner thinks he's the only one they can turn to, and they're isolated from the rest of the world, then he can have total control over them and get away with his abuse. This is almost a playbook of how abusive relationships work. The abusive partner starts by manipulating and isolating the abused partner so they cannot leave or hear outside perspectives and cannot imagine living without the abuser. Once the abused partner is hooked, the abuse ramps up, hence the end of the song. No one starts out fully abusive because the abused partner would just leave. It's hard to leave an abusive partner because they condition you to make it difficult. He can literally set his partner's world on fire and has made them isolated and dependent so he can get away with it. I've not heard anyone else talk about this online, so I wanted to share my perspective on this song since I really enjoyed it and thought I had a unique take to offer. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Let's talk about our final Saja boy, Jinu. He's a little more complicated as he doesn't represent one specific trope in the K-pop industry. And while I stan Ru Jinu and I really like Jinu's character, I have to say impartially he is a villain and does some bad things throughout the movie. However, I think that his sacrifice at the end of the film, plus the intentions behind his villainous acts, are enough to make him redeemable. Jinu can be silly and act in ways that seem selfless, but Jinu at his core is a selfish and opportunistic character. We see this throughout the movie as he always finds ways to exploit situations to his benefit. There are many examples, such as the following. His character introduction is him challenging Gimhwa, then offering to help him in order to further his goal of erasing his memories. He covers Rumi's patterns not out of kindness, but because he realizes her patterns might be something he can exploit to his benefit, and later he does so. Jinu became a demon originally after making a deal with Gimhwa that saved him from starvation but left his mother and sister to starve. And when he loses hope, he chooses to trust Gimhwa over Rumi and tricks her into losing her hope as well as he breaks up Huntrix. At face value, these are all selfish, opportunistic decisions that Jinu makes throughout the film. However, despite his selfishness and opportunism, Jinu is also shown to be kind and good. He made a hat for his pet tiger. He initially agrees to let Huntrix win the Idol Awards, and in the end he sacrifices himself. So what is driving Jinu to make these contradictory decisions he does? His shame. Jinu's shame is integral to his character the way Rumi's shame is integral to hers. Listen to what Gimhwa says in this scene, because it explains exactly why Jinu acts the way he does.
If you really thought you could escape what you are, what you did.
Gimhwa equates what Jinu did with what Jinu is. Jinu did something selfish and bad, so Jinu must be selfish and bad. This is an example of all or nothing thinking, an unhealthy thought process in which someone leaves out the nuance and thinks too absolutely. Situations are viewed in polar opposites, success or failure, perfect or worthless. There is no middle ground. This is a negative cognitive distortion, however, as thinking this way can cause people to become stagnant or stuck. If you view yourself as completely bad, then there would seem to be no point in growing as a person. We see this in characters such as BoJack Horseman, whose internal belief that he is bad causes him to keep acting in ways that affirm this absolute internal belief. And it's the same for Jinu. He did something bad, so he is bad. It doesn't help that Gimhwa affirms this belief as well. In reality, people make mistakes, they do bad things, they hurt people, but one mistake, or even 10 mistakes, or 100, doesn't automatically make someone a bad person or mean that they can never be good. When judging a character's morality, we should consider not just their actions, but also the reasons why they chose those actions. Jinu chooses to be selfish because he thinks that his selfish mistake defines who he is. He doesn't think he can be anything but selfish. Gimhwa constantly reinforces this all-or-nothing thinking because he knows that hope would set Jinu free. Jinu has been trapped for centuries with this belief, and it's why it's hard for him to change. He doesn't have a Zoe or a Mira who provide him unconditional support, and it's only through Rumi's belief that he's good that Jinu begins to feel hope. Look at this clip from the song Free. Jinu sees his demon self when he looks at the mirror, but what Rumi sees is his human self as he looks towards her, because Rumi sees the good he struggles to see. Looking at the lyrics, Jinu says he doesn't have a choice but to think he's a monster, with Gimhwa's voice in his head. At the end of the song, the hope Rumi gives him frees him from Gima's voice, and without hesitation, he agrees to allow Huntrix to seal the Honmoon at the Idol Awards. But as Rumi walks away and doubt creeps back in, Gima pulls him back to hell and torments Ginu again with his biggest regret, crushing any hope he had, and this is what ultimately causes Ginu to trick Rumi later at the Idol Awards, as he remains trapped in his belief that he can never be good. Even after the monstrous thing that Ginu does to Rumi, she still tells him that he's a good person who just made a mistake, and Ginu tells her the real story of what happened to his family. But listen to Rumi's response.
I left them. But that's not all you are.
That's not all you are. Rumi knows that what Ginu did isn't all he is, and she thinks he's still a good person. But Ginu's too lost to listen to her. It's not until the fight with Gima where Rumi reunites with her friends and sings about how they are more than their shame and that they accept themselves flaws and all, that Ginu is filled with so much hope that he gets his soul back as he selflessly sacrifices himself for Rumi. Ginu's not a selfish person at his core. He's a complicated character who spent centuries thinking his shame was all he was, until Rumi's love for him and her friends reminded him that he's more than his worst mistake. I also want to point out that after his sacrifice, Rumi gets a new sword. The creators of the movie haven't elaborated on it, besides calling it Ginu's sacrifice. So maybe Ginu's soul lives on in Rumi's sword. It's kind of an interesting detail that will likely be explored in any sequels. Speaking of Ginu, did you know his hat-stealing bird Susie and his neurotic blue tiger Derpy were actually based off of a traditional Korean art motif called jakhodo? The animals were often referred to as the idiot tiger and scolding magpie, hence Susie and Derpy's designs and personalities in the movie. The art is considered to be kachi horengi, essentially satire, where the idiot tiger represents the clueless voice of authority and the magpie represents the voice of the common people. In this scene...
Okay, so I've been meaning to ask, why does the bird wear a tiny hat?
I made it for the tiger, but the bird keeps taking it.
Is actually a reference to a real Joseon-era Minhwa painting that shows a tiger smoking a pipe and wearing a top hat, while a magpie stands nearby. In the art book, they describe Derpy as a loyal pet tiger with a mild case of OCD, and I love every scene that him and Susie are in. Also, have you guys seen the cursed Squishmallows? They made a biblically accurate Susie, and its design is so cursed. The last characters we're going to analyze are Celine and Rumi's mother. As we mentioned before, we don't know much about Rumi's mother. We know her name was Mi-young, and that her and Rumi's aunt Celine were in the previous group of hunters/musicians called the Sunlight Sisters during the late 90s and early 2000s, and we know that Mi-young met an untimely death, leaving Celine to raise Rumi when Rumi was still an infant. As for Celine, one of the writers of the show, Hannah McMecken, describes Celine and Rumi's relationship by saying, "They both wanted the other person to be something they just couldn't be," which is evident as Rumi wants Celine to be someone who can accept all of her, and Celine wishes Rumi wasn't part demon. During the confrontation we mentioned earlier, where Rumi asks Celine why she can't love all of her, Celine says the following.
"Everything I was taught told me you were wrong, but I made a promise."
She then urges Rumi to cover up and starts crafting a lie they can sell to Zoe and Mira. What's heartbreaking is Celine does seem to love Rumi, she says as much, but she's still unable to accept the parts of Rumi that go against what she was taught was right. Paradoxically, her lack of acceptance is what destroys the Honmoon, and the acceptance Rumi gets from her friends is what creates a new, stronger Honmoon. I think Celine's a deeply flawed character, and her core beliefs make it impossible for her to truly accept Rumi the way Rumi needs. Producer Michelle Wong explains that Celine and Rumi's relationship is toxic, as cultural and parental expectations are traumatic when you're not accepted for who you are. I think this is likely relatable for a lot of audience members who have parents that are unable to accept certain parts of them or their identity. I think Celine's a very real feeling character, and another triumph of this movie's character design, despite her lack of screen time. Also, I'm sure other viewers, including myself, really want to know how Rumi came to be. Seriously, a hunter fell in love with and had a child with a demon? There's just so much to explore there that I hope that when they do a sequel, or maybe even a prequel, we get some more information. One final thought I wanted to include was a complaint I had with the end of the movie. Seriously, who thought it was a good idea to use Takedown as the end credits song? In the movie, Takedown is supposed to be a hateful song that makes Rumi feel isolated by her friends, And after we see them reunite and get all these feel-good feelings, the movie ends with Takedown? Jeez. Anyways, at this point I've touched on everything I wanted to touch on for this movie. I hope you enjoyed my insights and that having all these fan theories, interviews, fun facts, and information in one video has helped you get a deeper insight into the movie for your next rewatch. So much went into this movie that it deserves to be recognized for the truly amazing experience and art piece that it is. I love this movie, and I hope I could share some of that love with you guys. I know it's a kind of a random addition to my channel, but I really had to talk about this movie. I've watched it so many times since it came out. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day. Signing off, Wordcraft Masterclass.